I made a careful study of the interview techniques used by police detectives and forensic investigators, not because my subjects are criminals, obviously, but those techniques, when used gently and not as interrogations, are intended to get to the heart of a story, to encourage disclosure, often of difficult or unofficial materials. Once you get a person started on their account, you just listen and you only ask for clarification. You become a study in neutrality to the best of your ability, unless something that comes up that requires a little challenge or clarification. For example, what I like to think of is way back when I was first collecting my accounts in the late 80s and early 90s, that would lead to my master's. I had several conversations with a woman who presented to me the first praying mantis entity contact that I had ever heard of. I mean, now they're fairly common, but at the time in the literature, there weren't very many of those. And in fact, I think if I remember right, her relaying of that experience to me was the first time I'd ever heard of such a thing. Well, of course, with my background, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, you wake up and there's a giant praying mantis over you. I know what praying mantises do, right? And I interrupted her in the middle of her talking, and I said, oh my God, I would be terrified. I mean, if I woke up and a giant praying mantis was over me, and she said, yeah, you'd think that would terrify you. She said, but for some reason, it didn't. There was this kind of essence of love and acceptance coming from it, and it didn't harm me. It was very gentle with me. And in my mind, I'm going, okay, it was like the weirdest thing, but her reaction like that was not something that she probably would have said in quite that way if I hadn't told her what my response was. So it's perfectly okay to respond as a human being. That is part of what this technique is. It's also important to listen to other researchers, because oftentimes they notice things that you don't, since they are coming at topics or cases from a different perspective. One of the things that has always irritated me, still irritates me, about certain sectors of the paranormal community is the way in which many researchers will try to compete with each other rather than collaborate on a given case or a set of phenomena. I mean, who are we really trying to impress? Seriously. I mean, regular mainstream scientists are always going to ignore us. And I'm not going to argue with people about stuff that's already contested, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. And this is another thing that I always have really appreciated about the four individuals, or especially Eugenia and Paul and Jacques. I mean, John Keel kind of went off on his own because of who he was, but Jacques and Paul and Eugenia, they were very much collaborators. They did their own research, but they connected with other people all the time, corresponded with them, got their ideas. Paul, in particular, loved to go on sort of like group expeditions to places, and so that you would have different people that specialized in different things, going to certain sites where paranormal stuff would happen, so that they could bring back their own impressions and data and then collate it all. I mean, to me, that's a real important approach.